Now, I haven't changed my position. Both Bob and I came out against the Iran deal last summer. Last August, I wrote an op-ed explaining why I had issues with the deal. The fact of the matter is, there were gaps in the deal that would make it hard to enforce. There were risks that were going to make the already chaotic region more chaotic. But in September of last year, the deal went through. It went through the U.S., it went through the United Nations. It's now in force. Unfortunately, Bob Dole's position, walk away from this deal after Iran has already received sanctions relief, after Iran has already begun trade relations with the Europeans, with Russia, with China, would leave Iran closer to a nuclear weapon and leave the United States unable to lead in enforcing this deal. I believe the most important thing we can do is make sure Iran never, ever gets a nuclear weapon. Not today, not during the 15 years of the deal, nor after that, ever.
And yet, even in his own words, what he wrote in his blog piece in the Times of Israel, he says, look, this all but ensures Iran ability to get a nuclear weapon. Bob Menendez says the same thing. So it doesn't dismantle the architecture. In fact, it leaves it in place. And so this is a disastrous deal which is going to haunt us for generations. His flip-flop, well noted. In fact, you wrote about it at the Daily Herald, talking about how he 100% supports the deal.
No, that's not what I said.
100% supports implementation of the deal, which is in essence the same thing. He supports the deal. The
deal is in place. We
and
can't
so
change
this is going to haunt us for generations. It's going to be a problem for Israel as well. I think we have to put sanctions in place. Again, what we've done is we've emboldened the Iranian regime. So the Iranian regime, again, is firing missiles at U.S. warships. It's taking hostages in terms of U.S. sailors. It's testing ballistic missiles. This does not seem to be someone that is all of a sudden holding back. They are charging headlong into this process. And so we don't have anywhere anytime inspections. This is a very real problem. In fact, we see secret deals that have been made that we weren't aware of even in the meantime. This is a real problem. It's going to be a problem for the United States. It's going to be a problem for our allies.
We have to make sure that, as Mr. Gold noted, when Iran fires a ballistic missile, which is not dealt with in the nuclear agreement, but is dealt with in UN sanctions, we push back twice as hard so they understand that no action they take is going to go without a response from the United States and the international community. We need to make sure that we put assets in place so that we can interdict Iran's efforts to ship arms, whether it's to Syria or Yemen or anywhere else where they're supporting international terrorism. We need to make sure that we put a noose around Hezbollah. One of the bills I co-authored when I was in Congress was happy to see it pass in the next Congress and now signed into law is the Hezbollah International Financing Prevention Act. For the first time this year, we have sanctions on Hezbollah that makes it harder for them to get their message out by putting constraints on their television station. Makes it harder for them to conduct financial transactions by limiting their access to the international banking system. These are the things we have to do.
What we need is someone that's going to be able to stand up to the administration. And frankly, my opponent has shown time and again that he's unwilling to be able to do so.
I think the fact that I did stand up to the administration.
No, but you didn't. You caved.
I didn't cave.
I mean, you folded like a cheap lawn chair. Honestly,
it's
problematic. It is problematic when we're talking about the safety and security, not just of the United States, but of Israel and our allies.
But Bob,
that's the fact.
The fact is the deal went into play.
That is the fact, plain and simple.
Bob,
and when the administration says, we're not going to do that because we're not going to, basically, whether it be heavy water, and we voted to say, listen, we're not going to go and support that, and the administration says, well, we really need you to do this. My goodness gracious, we don't need someone that's going to fold like a cheap lawn chair. We need someone that's going to stand up and say, no, this is exactly what we need to do. I've demonstrated an ability to do that. My opponent is not.
So I stood up to it. I stand by my position that there were gaps and risks that need to be addressed. I stand by my position that now that the deal is in force, we cannot walk away unilaterally and leave the other nations to try to enforce it without our support. If we walk away from our agreements, if we walk away from our commitments as a nation, we're going to lose that ability to convene around the world. And that'd be bad for the United States as well as for the world. And I won't let that happen.
We need U.S. leadership, no question about it. And what I think we find, our allies don't trust us, our enemies don't fear us. This is a real problem. And therefore, it creates a void which, frankly, is going to be filled by someone. Whether it's North Korea, whether it's China that is building islands in the South and East China Sea, whether it's Ukraine and Crimea, with Putin going in there. Obviously, we see the rise of ISIS and what they're doing. This is a big problem, and of course Iran. So I agree that the U.S. we need leadership in the United States, and we need to have strong leadership in the United States. And right now, I don't believe that we have that.